This isn't just another word from heaven, it's the first of its kind, and it has your name written on it. Not whispered into a crowd, not buried in the pages of someone else's story. This word has been sealed, kept, and now unveiled for you. What you're stepping into is not routine encouragement, it's a divine shift. This is a holy moment thick with God's presence, alive with sacred urgency. I don't say that to sound poetic. I say it because the Spirit is stirring and you can feel it. Deep calls to deep, and your spirit is answering. This wasn't an accident. You didn't stumble upon this message. You weren't bored scrolling. You were summoned. Heaven orchestrated this encounter, knowing the exact moment your heart would be soft enough, your ears open enough, your soul hungry enough to finally hear what's never been said this way before. Isaiah 42 verse 9 says, "See, the former things have taken place, and new things I declare. Before they spring into being, I announce them to you." That's what's happening right now. God is making an announcement, and it's launching something new. This isn't just information. This is activation. What you're about to receive won't just inspire you, it will awaken you. It's not a nice quote to write in a journal. It's a sentence that will shake you to your bones because it speaks to the very reason God breathed life into you. The pressure you've been feeling, the heaviness in your chest, the dreams that don't make sense, that spiritual stirring that kept you up last night. That wasn't random. It was a sign. Your spirit already knew something was coming, something that would require your full attention, your whole heart, and your immediate yes. God isn't just repeating himself. He's revealing something new, and the reason he waited until now is because you've finally arrived. You've reached a place in your journey where your character is catching up to your calling, where your maturity is finally strong enough to handle the magnitude of what's being spoken. Heaven didn't withhold this word out of cruelty, it held it back out of love. Because timing matters. And the moment the seed of destiny meets the soil of readiness, growth becomes inevitable. Habakkuk 1 verse 5 says, "Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe even if you were told." That's this moment. That's this word. It's the kind of thing that will sound too big, too wild, too divine to make sense to the natural mind. But this isn't for your logic, it's for your spirit. What you're carrying was never meant to make sense on paper. It was meant to make impact in eternity. I need you to hear me clearly. What's happening here is not theoretical, it's deeply personal. This is not theology for study, this is revelation for activation. 1 Corinthians 2 verse 9 to 10 reminds us that no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no human mind has conceived the things God has prepared for those who love him. But these are the things God has revealed to us by his Spirit. That's what's being revealed now. Not through emotion, not through hype, but by the Spirit speaking directly to yours. You were coded to carry something the world hasn't seen yet. You weren't just called to survive your storms. You were born to shift atmospheres, to carry the weight of heaven's agenda on earth. That ache inside you, that desire to do more, to live deeper, to walk closer. It's because the dormant things are being spoken into. The sleeping places are being awakened. The time of waiting is over. This is not the delay. This is the delivery. Friend, there's a sentence. Heaven has never spoken aloud until now. And when God finally released it, he didn't shout it from a mountaintop. He didn't carve it into stone or thunder it through the sky. He whispered it into the chaos, directly into your spirit, in the middle of the storm you thought would drown you. While you were asking for rescue, heaven was releasing revelation. And here it is, clear and unshaken. I have stored myself inside of you. This isn't poetic language. This isn't a metaphor for hope or a symbol of possibility. This is a spiritual fact, a reality more concrete than what you see around you. You're not just walking through life with potential, you're walking with presence. And not just beside you, within you. You thought God would come from the outside, that breakthrough would arrive like lightning from the clouds. But instead, the thunder is already inside your chest. This changes everything. Because if God has stored himself within you, then the answer you've been waiting for isn't coming. It's already here. That longing you feel, that ache you can't put into words, that restless burning you've mistaken for confusion or spiritual fatigue. It's not a sign that something's wrong. It's confirmation that something holy has been placed in you, and it's starting to move. You're not breaking apart, you're opening up. Opening. Colossians 1 verse 27 declares the mystery that has been hidden for ages, Christ in you, the hope of glory. This isn't a concept for theology class. This is the current of divine power that's been living in your core, waiting to be acknowledged. The enemy hoped you'd keep looking outside for what God placed inside. But now that the veil has been torn from this truth, you'll never see yourself the same again. And here's what's wild: you weren't always ready for this. You weren't always soft enough to receive it. Heaven didn't withhold this revelation because God was distant. It waited until your soul was quiet enough to hear it, surrendered enough to carry it, and broken enough to let it soak in. That moment you thought you were being undone. That was the sacred unmaking that made space for something eternal. This word didn't land because you earned it. It arrived because God has been waiting to deliver it. Waiting for the exact second your heart could finally believe that it's not just about doing more for him, it's about being the vessel that holds him. You don't have to perform for presence. You were chosen to contain it. Romans 8 verse 11 assures us that the same Spirit who raised Jesus from the dead now dwells in you. Think about that. Resurrection power isn't just an event in history. It's the atmosphere of your inner life. That sentence God whispered into your being wasn't just for encouragement. It was a key, a code, a holy password to open the vault of everything that's been locked inside of you until now. It's why everything's starting to feel different. It's why the things that used to satisfy you no longer do. Because you weren't created to be filled by the world, you were designed to house the fullness of heaven. That low-grade discomfort, that divine dissatisfaction. It's not spiritual immaturity. It's the Spirit stretching the walls of your inner temple, preparing you to move in a way you've never moved before. 2 Corinthians 4 verse 7 puts it like this: "We have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. You are the jar, He is the treasure." And now that heaven has said it, now that the seal has been broken, creation is rearranging to reflect what has been released in you. Doors are opening, assignments are shifting, and you're not watching from the sidelines. You're carrying the very power that makes it possible. So don't try to memorize this truth. Don't treat it like a beautiful phrase to quote on hard days. Let it become you. Let it echo through every part of your life, not as a reminder of what God did, but as a revelation of what God is doing right now through you. The shaking you've felt lately isn't random turbulence. It's what happens when a soul begins to remember its assignment. The world told you that your story began the day you were born, but that's not how heaven sees it. What the calendar marked as your birth, heaven marked as a landing, a divine insertion into time and territory for a purpose far greater than survival. You didn't arrive by accident. You were deployed. You were never meant to blend in. That sense of being out of step with culture, that ache of not fitting into the systems around you, stop calling it misfit energy. It's mission clarity. You weren't sent to adapt. You were sent to reform, to disrupt patterns, to carry something that heaven knew the earth couldn't manufacture on its own. That uncomfortable gap you feel between who you are and what the world expects of you, that's not dysfunction. That's divine frequency tuned to a sound higher than the crowd can hear. Even your family line wasn't just a matter of biology. Some people are born into families. But you were dropped into a bloodline as a holy interruption sent not just to continue a legacy, but to redeem it. You've felt the weight of generational patterns, shame, silent cycles that choke destiny, and you've wondered why it hit you harder than others. It's because you weren't sent to repeat it. You were sent to end it. You are heaven's response to years of unanswered cries. God didn't send you into ease. He sent you for impact. The pain you've walked through wasn't punishment. It was pre-flight training. Those wounds weren't wasted. They were preparing your soul for altitude. Jeremiah 1 verse 5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Which means your origin wasn't earth. It was God's presence. And from that place you were set apart, not to coast, but to collide with darkness and establish the light. Some of you have faced warfare since you were a child, long before you had language for your calling. That's not coincidence. It's because your assignment made you a target. The enemy recognized the code written on your spirit even before you did. He saw what was inside you and tried to bury it under trauma, rejection, and delay. But what was placed in you wasn't fragile. It was forged for fire. You've walked through what should have destroyed you, but instead you emerged with authority. Because God doesn't send weak ones to hard places. He sends those who carry heaven's weight in their bones. That deep ache inside of you, the one that makes it hard to settle, the one that makes silence feel loud and stillness feel urgent. That's not depression. That's deployment awareness. Esther 4 verse 14 asks the piercing question, "Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" You didn't just show up in this generation, you were chosen for it. You are the answer to a problem hell hoped would go unresolved. Even Jesus, after his resurrection, didn't just rest in glory. He turned to his disciples in John 20 verse 21 and said, "As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." You've been sent, not just to occupy space, but to shift it. Not just to survive your days, but to shape them. You carry heaven's fingerprint, not as decoration, but as evidence that you've been assigned to disturb what is and call forth what heaven intended. You weren't created for applause. That's why the world's affirmation has never been enough for you. You were coded for disruption, and that means many won't understand you. That's okay. You weren't sent for their comfort. You were sent for God's cause. So don't call yourself broken just because the world mislabels your wiring. You're not malfunctioning. You're mobilizing. You are not limping through life, you are walking out a launch. Your arrival wasn't casual. It was coordinated. And the sooner you accept that you were deployed and not just born, the sooner you'll move with the clarity, courage, and conviction of someone who knows that heaven meant for them to be here, right now, on purpose, for such a time as this. Sometimes what feels like falling apart is actually the moment just before something sacred begins to come forth. You've called it fatigue. You've called it failure. You've whispered into the silence of the night, "God, what's wrong with me?" But I need you to hear this with your spirit wide open. You're not exhausted. You're in labor. The shaking, the tears, the emotional tides crashing without warning. These aren't breakdowns. They're contractions. And heaven doesn't waste contractions. This pressure you feel is not your undoing. It's your becoming. Romans 8 verse 22 tells us that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. That groaning you've felt deep in your soul, that strange mix of hope and heaviness, is not a sign that you've missed something. It's evidence that something divine is being pushed from within you into the earth. What you thought was the end of your strength is actually the beginning of your outpouring. There's an inner chamber in your spirit, a sealed place where God has tucked away mysteries, mantles, messages meant for this generation. And now it's leaking. The weight pressing against you isn't punishment. It's the signal that the seal is breaking. You've been carrying this for far longer than you realized, and now heaven has said, it's time. Oil never comes from ease. It comes from pressing. And the pressure has been building, hasn't it? That restlessness in your chest, the sleepless nights, the sudden floods of emotion, they're not symptoms of failure. They're symptoms of fulfillment. You're not crumbling, you're crowning. Don't believe the lie that says the pain is proof that God has left you. No, this is where God is closest. Isaiah 66 verse 9 delivers a divine promise. Shall I bring to the point of birth, and not cause to bring forth, says the Lord. If God brought you to the edge of this moment, he will carry you through it. Your heartbreak wasn't wasted. Your betrayal wasn't random. They were keys, codes meant to unlock the place in you where the mantle was waiting. Every tear you cried in secret watered the soil of your calling. Every disappointment carved space in your heart for a deeper capacity to carry what's coming next. And just when you thought God had stepped away, he was actually doing his deepest work within you. He didn't abandon you. He hid himself in you. This isn't the end of your strength. It's the birthing of your authority. You were never meant to walk through this season and come out the same. That heaviness pressing on you, that's the calling demanding release. You're not being crushed, you're being poured out. John 16 verse 21 captures this perfectly. When a woman is giving birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish for joy that a human being has been born into the world. The anguish is real, but so is the joy that follows. And when it comes, you'll see that the pain wasn't your undoing, it was your delivery room. You've called yourself unstable. You've questioned your faith. But what if what you've labeled as weakness is actually the evidence that something holy is being formed inside of you? What if the emotional waves aren't dysfunction, but divine contractions, bringing forth what God planted in your depths? The enemy would love for you to believe you're breaking down. But I'm here to tell you, you're breaking open. You're not crazy. You're giving birth to your mantle. This is why the warfare increased. This is why you felt isolated. It's because birth doesn't happen in public. It happens in hidden places where God alone holds your hand through every trembling push. Romans 8 verse 23 says, "We groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies." Your soul is groaning not from defeat, but from destiny, and every wave you feel is pulling what's eternal into what is earthly. Let the trembling happen. Don't resist it. Lean in. Because what's coming out of you is not weakness, it's glory. You're not collapsing, you're opening. And the sound that will come from your life after this season will shake more than just your world. It will awaken others waiting to birth their own callings too. Heaven has been waiting for this moment, and the earth is about to hear your cry. And just when you thought the intensity had reached its limit, when the contractions felt too much to bear, another reality begins to reveal itself. Not everything that feels heavy is meant to be cast off. Sometimes the weight we feel isn't a sign of breakdown, it's the sign of mantling. You thought something was wrong. The pressure, the pull, the sudden silence from people who once affirmed you. But heaven wasn't punishing you, it was placing something on you. That weight you feel. It's not a chain, it's a crown. It's the evidence of divine assignment resting upon your shoulders. Elisha knew the feeling. When Elijah was taken up, 2 Kings 2 verse 13 says, "He picked up the cloak that had fallen from Elijah and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan." That cloak called a mantle wasn't just cloth. It was weight. It was responsibility. It was power. And Elisha didn't receive it during a mountaintop celebration. He received it in a moment of grief, transition, and choice. That's how mantles are handed out, not in comfort, but in consecration. So let's stop mislabeling the heaviness. It's not depression. It's not dysfunction. It's the evidence of calling. Every sleepless night where your spirit groaned, every moment you stayed silent when you had every right to speak, every room that rejected you, every conversation that left you feeling too much or not enough. Those weren't failures. They were fittings. Heaven has been stitching your mantle with the thread of obedience woven through every private yes. There's a reason you felt like you didn't fit. You weren't designed to blend. You were wrapped in something at birth that didn't conform to the rooms you were placed in. Like Joseph's coat, your robe had too many colors for some to understand. And instead of seeing your uniqueness as favor, they labeled it as arrogance. But let me speak clearly into that wound. You were misunderstood, not because you were misaligned, but because you were mantled. You've been crying under the weight of your identity, but it's not your identity that's heavy, it's your calling. And that's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to rise into. Hebrews 12 verse 1 urges us to lay aside every weight and run with endurance the race set before us. But here's the mystery. Not all weight is meant to be laid aside. Some is meant to be carried with glory. The difference lies in knowing the source. Guilt. That's not yours to carry. Shame, leave it behind. But the burden to intercede, the ache to speak truth even when it costs you, the fire that won't let you settle for surface-level Christianity, that's your mantle and it's holy. Let me tell you something bold and true. The enemy wanted you to despise your weight because he feared what would happen if you ever learned to wear it well. But Jesus himself said in Matthew 11 verse 29 to 30, "Take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That doesn't mean the assignment won't cost you. It means the strength to carry it doesn't have to come from you alone. When you're yoked to Jesus, what would break others becomes your breakthrough. So stop running from the weight. Stop praying it away. Start asking for the strength to stand under it. That weight is proof that heaven has trusted you with something eternal. You've been clothed in fire, not fabric. And fire doesn't always feel good, but it always refines. Mantles don't sit soft on your shoulders. They ignite your spirit, disrupt your comfort, and demand a deeper walk. Every moment you chose prayer instead of panic, another thread was added. Every hour of heartbreak when you still lifted your hands in worship, another layer of weight was formed. This is how heaven dresses its messengers. Not with applause, but with authority. Not with spotlight, but with substance. There's something about a person who knows they've been mantled. They carry stillness in storms. They speak with weight that breaks strongholds. They walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere without saying a word. Because when God places a mantle on you, it's not just for your elevation, it's for others' deliverance. So straighten your spine. Hold your head high. The weight you feel isn't a mistake. It's a sign. A sign that you've been trusted with a holy burden, a sacred assignment, a kingdom call. You're not dragging chains, you're wearing something eternal. Heaven didn't ask you to survive it. Heaven sent you to walk in it. You see, some things don't crack under pressure, they bloom. And just as mantles don't fall on the unprepared, release doesn't come without refinement. You didn't miss your moment. You didn't fall behind. You were hidden on purpose. I know it looked like silence, like delay, like unanswered prayers stacked so high you could barely breathe under them. But heaven wasn't ignoring you. Heaven was shielding you. You weren't being overlooked, you were being overwatched. God didn't say no. He said not yet. And it wasn't to punish you, it was to preserve you. Psalm 27 verse 14 echoes this divine rhythm. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. There's no waste in waiting when God is the one holding the clock. That delay wasn't dead time, it was divine timing. You weren't unqualified. You weren't lacking. But the environment around you, it wasn't ready to receive the full weight of what God placed within you. There were snares that looked like opportunities, voices that sounded affirming but were laced with poison, Doors that opened quickly, but would have led you into compromise. God saw it all, and in his mercy, he wrapped you in holy obscurity. He hid you like a seed, not because you weren't called, but because the soil wasn't clean enough yet. You've been measuring time by how long it's been since you prayed for the promise. But heaven has been measuring your depth, your roots. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11 reminds us, he has made everything beautiful in its time. Not before, not after, in its time. And that time isn't something you chase, it's something God aligns. You thought the not yets meant denial. But what if every delay was a shield in disguise? What if those moments of stillness were God intercepting a storm you never even saw coming? You cried for the platform, but he saw the snakes coiled beneath it. You longed for recognition, but he was protecting your purity from corruption. Because your purpose isn't cheap. It's not something to be rushed. When God fashions someone for influence, he doesn't microwave them. He marinates them in obscurity. He seasons them with nights of silence, prayers that seem unanswered, and days where your only affirmation is the whisper of the Spirit saying, keep going. You weren't late. You were sealed. Sealed from counterfeit affirmation. Sealed from premature promotion. Sealed from stepping into a version of your future that wasn't yet safe for your soul. You were being kept in the cleft of the rock like Moses in Exodus 33 while the glory passed by. Because when it's your time, no power in hell can block what God's been preparing in secret. Isaiah 60 verse 22 says, when the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen. Not when you push hard enough. Not when people finally see your value. When he says the atmosphere is clean, when the traps are disarmed, when the character inside you can carry the calling placed on you, that's when it unfolds. Not a moment sooner, not a second late. And oh, how we resist this truth. We think delay equals disqualification, but delay is often the very mark of being deeply trusted. Only the most precious cargo is stored with that much care. Only the most sacred oil is sealed and guarded until the moment of holy unveiling. So no, you weren't denied. You weren't discarded. You were strategically paused. Because what you carry is too weighty for shallow platforms. God was protecting you from being exposed to people who only wanted to consume your gift, but never honor its source. You were being kept for covenant, not just convenience. For the long haul, not a viral moment. For something that will still bear fruit when the spotlight dims. Beloved, some doors don't slam shut. They simply stay silent when you knock. Not out of cruelty, but clarity. And sometimes that silence isn't rejection, it's redirection. When God sends you with a message, he also chooses the ears that will hear it. You may be speaking truth, but not every room is ready for the sound of your calling. This is where discernment becomes your armor. There's a reason your words seem to echo in certain circles, why your fire gets misunderstood as too intense, your hunger mistaken for arrogance, your passion reduced to too much. But here's what you need to know. You're not being dramatic, you're being directed. Matthew 13 verse 11 reveals this mystery clearly. The knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. It's not elitism, it's encryption. Heaven doesn't broadcast revelation on public frequencies. Some of what you carry has been coded in the spirit. Only those tuned to God's voice will resonate with it. This is why you can be in the same room under the same teaching, reading the same scripture, and walk away with something completely different in your spirit. Because God didn't just call you to listen, he called you to hear. There is a sacred frustration that comes when you're sent with a sound and no one around you can interpret it. You try to explain your vision and they squint. You share what God whispered in the night and they yawn. But take heart, it's not because your sound is wrong, it's because they're not the ones assigned to it. Revelation 2 verse 7 gives us this pattern. Whoever has ears, Let them hear what the Spirit says. Not everyone has those ears, and that's okay. You don't need to reduce your voice to be received. You don't need to tone down your fire to sit comfortably in rooms that never carried your blueprint. Don't lower your frequency just to make someone else feel safe in their spiritual complacency. What God gave you wasn't meant for comfort zones, it was meant to shift atmospheres. If they roll their eyes, let them. If they walk away mid-sentence, let them. That's not a sign you're too much. It's a sign they're not meant to carry your sound. The danger isn't being too loud. The danger is watering down what was meant to awaken dry bones just to avoid offense. That oil was costly. You don't owe it to hands that only want to analyze, criticize, or sanitize the rawness of what God has poured into you. There's protection in misunderstanding. Some people were never meant to follow your voice. They were meant to watch from a distance while God establishes you. And it's better to walk alone in divine assignment than to be surrounded in disobedient comfort. Proverbs 4 verse 7 declares, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." But not everyone seeks understanding with humility. Some seek it just to dissect what they can't control. So don't waste time explaining the fire in your bones to those who only know smoke. You weren't called to be understood. You were called to be obedient. And obedience sometimes sounds like a trumpet blast in a library, loud, disruptive, even offensive to those not prepared to move. But when God breathes a sound into you, it's not for entertainment. It's for alignment. You were sent as a sound, not a performance, not a trend, a sound from the throne of God to the earth. And sounds don't ask permission to echo. They just move through the atmosphere and cause a response in the ones who were waiting for it. The ones who've been aching for confirmation. The ones who've been asking God to speak, and then you open your mouth and something in them leaps. That's alignment. That's why your voice carries weight even when the room doesn't seem to receive it. But understand this. The sound God placed in you didn't start on a stage, it was born in the secret place. Before it ever resonated in others, it was whispered to you. And that whisper, though quiet, was thunder in the spirit. Some of the loudest moments in the spirit begin with a whisper no one else can hear. Not because it isn't powerful, but because it's personal. Sometimes God's most sacred work in your life happens in the stillness when it feels like He's nowhere to be found. But oh, beloved, He hasn't abandoned you. He's simply gone deeper. There are seasons where God doesn't speak to the crowd. He speaks into the cave. Not the cave you stumbled into by mistake, but the one He led you to for preservation. What looks like isolation is often incubation. What feels like delay is often divine downloading. Psalm 91 verse 1 reminds us that he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. That shadow isn't dark because of absence, it's deep because of covering. And here's the truth. Your calling is not common. It's radioactive. It carries too much weight to be exposed before the inner structure can bear it. The silence wasn't neglect, it was shielding. God wasn't ignoring you. He was storing something in you that could only be conceived in the quiet. Not everything can grow under applause. Some things must develop in secret, watered by tears, protected by obscurity. You might have called it loneliness, but heaven called it layering. God was wrapping you in revelation too holy to shout about, too raw to release before the time was right. You were being protected from contamination, especially the kind that comes when we start to perform instead of abide. Some friendships had to fail, not because you weren't lovable, but because they couldn't carry the oil without trying to market it. They weren't firewalls of rejection, they were God's mercy cloaked in endings. In that sacred silence, God was doing surgery, not with noise, not with fanfare, but with a holy stillness that goes beneath the surface. Isaiah 30 verse 15 whispers this truth. In quietness and trust is your strength. And it's in that very quietness that strength was rebuilt. Not the kind that flexes outward, but the kind that anchors deep. The kind that allows you to stand when everything around you wobbles. The kind that doesn't need external affirmation because it's been formed in communion, not consensus. The silence was not the absence of movement. It was a reordering of your soul. Your frequency was being adjusted. Your hearing sharpened. You began to hear God in ways others couldn't, because He tuned your spirit to a frequency that doesn't require volume to recognize truth. What others miss in the noise, you started discerning in the quiet. That's the gift of the hidden life. And oh, how precious that hidden life is. You weren't forgotten, you were reserved. You weren't passed over, you were positioned. Like Moses in Exodus 33 verse 22, when God hid him in the cleft of the rock and covered him with His hand until glory passed by, so it wouldn't destroy him prematurely. What a holy kindness that God would rather hold you back than see your soul collapse under the weight of glory you weren't ready to carry yet. That kind of silence doesn't produce information, it produces intimacy. You weren't just learning about God, you were learning to live in Him. You didn't just read about peace, you became a vessel that hosts it. You weren't just seeking direction, you were becoming the kind of person who carries direction for others. So if you're still in that quiet place, don't resent it. The silence is not empty. It's sacred. It's the womb where mantles mature. The soil where revelation roots itself so deeply that no storm can dig it up. God doesn't hide what He's done with you. He hides you because what He's doing isn't finished. Glory is still growing. The sound is still loading. And when the time comes, it will not be a whisper of insecurity. It will be a thunderous release of everything heaven trusted you to carry in silence. Not every turning point comes with a spotlight. Sometimes it's just a still moment, a sacred pause when you realize the shift wasn't waiting on a miracle, it was waiting on you. Not just your obedience, not just your faith, but you, the living fulfillment of what heaven once whispered into the earth. You've been scanning the horizon, waiting for the word to show up, watching for the sign, listening for the next confirmation. But here's the awakening. You are not just looking for the prophecy, you are the prophecy. What was once spoken in faith is now walking in flesh, and your very breath carries the proof that God finishes what He starts. So is my word that goes out from my mouth. Isaiah 55 verse 11 declares, "It will not return to me empty." You are that return, that answer, that embodiment of divine intention. You weren't born to be a passive listener of God's plan. You were sculpted by His hands to fulfill it. The weight you've carried, the groaning, the stirring, the ache that won't leave your bones isn't restlessness. It's the sound of legacy igniting. That fire in your chest. It's not ambition. It's prophecy combusting into action. And I need you to understand this. Your existence didn't just happen. It was announced. You are not an afterthought. You are the evidence that God heard someone's cry. Maybe it was your grandmother's whispered prayers in the dark. Maybe it was a desperate intercession from generations ago. Maybe it was the longing of saints who never lived to see the promise, but died believing. And now here you are, the living scroll being read aloud by heaven. Don't downplay what you've survived. Every battle you crawled through was hell's desperate attempt to silence what you carry. The enemy didn't attack you because of your weakness. He attacked because of your sound. He heard the echo of heaven in your soul before you ever recognized it in yourself. He tried to smother the word by smothering you. But you're still breathing, still moving, still burning. This is why your arrival in this season is not random. It is timed. You weren't born late. You were born on cue. Heaven doesn't operate on accidents, it operates on alignment. Luke 4 verse 21 gives us this stunning moment. Jesus stood in the synagogue, read the scroll of Isaiah and declared, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." Can you feel that? That holy collision between word and fulfillment? That's you now. The scroll is being read and your life is saying, "Today this is fulfilled." You're not waiting for another word to convince you. You are the word in motion. Every step you take is prophecy unfolding. Every room you enter carries heaven's vibration. That's why you feel the shaking. That internal quaking isn't anxiety, it's unveiling. Like a scroll being unrolled, like a curtain being pulled back. Ezekiel 37 verse 4 to 5 speaks of dry bones receiving breath rising to life. You felt dry, you felt buried, but breath has entered you. And now your movement speaks, your obedience preaches, your life prophesies. You are not a repeat, you are not a remix, you are not a recycled sound trying to fit into someone else's rhythm. You are the original frequency sent to disrupt cycles and initiate the new. You are heaven's fresh release. A voice not trying to echo what's already been said, but commissioned to speak what only you can declare. Don't underestimate the weight of your yes. When you say yes to the process, yes to the silence, yes to the stretching, you're not just agreeing with a plan, you're aligning with your true identity. You're becoming the visible manifestation of what once lived in invisible faith. You are prophecy clothed in skin. You are answer walking through the earth. And your journey, your scars, your resilience, they don't disqualify the prophecy, they confirm it. Confirm. Friend, a trailblazer never waits for a paved road, they become one. There comes a time when your spirit outgrows the maps others made, not because they were wrong, but because they were too small. You've been searching for a blueprint, a framework, a familiar voice to echo back what God told you in secret. But this is your commissioning moment. There is no blueprint, because you are the blueprint. The direction you've been seeking will not come from behind. It's being built beneath your steps. Abraham was called this way. By faith, Abraham obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Hebrews 11 verse 8 reminds us, that wasn't recklessness. That was alignment with a God who leads by revelation, not repetition. What God is doing through you hasn't been modeled, and that's not a problem. That's the proof. You weren't called to follow trails, you were anointed to blaze them. There's a weight in your spirit that can't be explained by your surroundings. You've felt out of place, misread, even dismissed. But that's what happens when pioneers seek validation from settlers. Your clarity won't come from the familiar, it will come from obedience. Joshua 3 verse 4 said of the Ark of the Covenant, "You have never been this way before." And yet they were still instructed to follow. Not because the terrain was known, but because the God leading them was. What's ahead of you won't fit the metrics of the past. It won't feel like what you've seen. That's because you weren't born to repeat. You were born to release. You've been trusted with a divine scroll that's only activated by movement. Every act of blind obedience is another line written, another dimension opened, another territory unlocked. When your feet move in faith, the invisible becomes visible. Heaven meets the earth not in theory but in action. Don't let the trembling stop you. That shaking you feel deep inside isn't fear, it's clearance. You are being cleared for takeoff, cleared for transition, cleared for birthing what's never been seen. Isaiah 43 verse 19 roars with this declaration. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? That new thing is not just coming, it's coming through you. You've been waiting for confirmation, a sign, a prophetic echo. But the truth is this terrain hasn't been walked by others, because it's waiting for your feet to name it. This isn't about exploration. This is about execution. You are not out here hoping something will happen. You are the one it happens through. Every step you take is not just travel, it's transformation. This journey is not about arriving somewhere new, it's about becoming something new. And yes, the road is raw. Yes, it's wild. Yes, sometimes the silence around you makes you question if you're going the right way. But this isn't confusion. It's consecration. God doesn't rush revelation when he's building a leader. The absence of directions isn't the absence of destiny. It's the sound of heaven holding its breath, watching a vessel carry glory into a land that's never known it before. You've been marked for territory that doesn't have a name yet. And the strange thing about trailblazing is this: no one celebrates it while it's happening. There's no applause when you're hacking through spiritual brush, cutting through old systems, laying foundations no one else understands. But don't look around for affirmation. Look within for the fire. That flame wasn't placed in you to flicker. It was placed to forge. So press forward. Go where no one's clapped yet. Obey where no one's applauded. You don't need a crowd, you need conviction. Your compass isn't comfort, it's calling. This is the walk of faith. This is what it means to move without a model, to carry vision where there's no visual to go first. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And as you move, know this: heaven doesn't always wait for your comfort. It moves at the speed of obedience. This is one of those moments, the kind that splits time, the kind where heaven has not just whispered but declared. And once heaven speaks, silence is no longer an option. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't unhear the voice that stirred your spirit awake. This isn't just divine encouragement, it's divine activation. The scroll has been opened, the oil has been poured. The mantle is not hovering, it's resting on your shoulders now. You've been asking for clarity, confirmation, another sign to prove you're ready. But beloved, the sign isn't coming. You are the sign. You're the burning bush in this generation, the fire that does not consume but commands attention. You carry the evidence of God's voice. And that voice didn't speak just to soothe your soul. It spoke to send you. This word wasn't a lullaby. It was a marching order. Romans 8 verse 19 tells us, "Creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." That's not poetic language. That's a spiritual summons. The earth is groaning not for another sermon, but for a son or daughter to stand in their anointing. You are not the audience, you are the arrival. You are not waiting for the move of God, you are the move of God. And now is not the time to hesitate. Delay is no longer a safe space. What once was protection, those hidden seasons, the gentle pace, the holding back, now becomes disobedience if you choose to linger. Because the cloud is moving, and the word you carry is not meant to sit in storage, it's meant to manifest. James 1 verse 22 is clear. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. This is the hour for action. You've been handed over, not held back. Heaven has said yes, and the weight of that yes is now waiting on your walk. Don't sit back hoping someone else will rise. Don't wait for a confirmation from people who were never meant to understand your assignment. You were commissioned by the King, not the crowd. It's time to rise. Isaiah 60 verse 1 doesn't request, it commands. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. This is the day to shine, not tomorrow, not when it makes sense, not when you feel more ready. Today, right here, right now. And so I say this with fire in my spirit. You didn't just hear the word, you became the echo. Now walk like the sentence heaven risked time to speak just for you. Before we close, I want to invite you to take a sacred pause to quiet your heart, open your spirit, and enter into a fervent moment of prayer. If something in this message stirred you, if you felt heaven press close and speak directly to you, don't let this pass you by. Join me now as we respond to God's voice, not with fear or hesitation, but with full surrender and holy boldness. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we come before you with hearts wide open, humbled and in awe that you would speak so personally, so powerfully and so precisely. There's nothing casual about what you've just revealed, and so we won't respond casually. You are the God who moves mountains with a whisper, who rearranges lives with a sentence, and who births new beginnings with one word. And tonight, that word was for us. Thank you, God, for still speaking. Thank you for not being distant or disconnected, but ever near, ever intentional, ever pursuing. Thank you for choosing to trust us with a word so weighty, so holy, and so full of purpose. We don't take it lightly that you have spoken into our lives. You could have chosen anyone, but you chose us, and we choose to respond. Father, for every heart that feels the stirring, but is still wrestling with fear, would you give supernatural courage? For every soul that's been waiting for direction, wondering if they're forgotten, wondering if they missed it, remind them that nothing spoken by you returns empty. You are not late. You are not unsure. And we are not lost. We are held by your hand, guided by your timing, and carried by your mercy. We don't ask for another sign. We don't ask for another word. We ask for strength to walk in the one you just gave. We ask for eyes to see the doors you've opened and feet that will not hesitate to walk through them. We ask for a spirit that doesn't shrink back, but rises in holy fire with boldness rooted in your presence, not our perfection. God, where you're leading us, there may be no map, there may be no trail, but we don't need a path when we have your presence. So let our faith outrun our fear. Let our obedience speak louder than our doubts. Let us carry this word like a torch, not hidden, not dimmed, but blazing with the fire of heaven. We thank you for every season that led us to this moment, for the silence that wasn't empty but sacred, for the waiting that wasn't wasted but woven with purpose, for the trials that didn't destroy us but shaped us for glory. You are a master craftsman, and we are your workmanship, surrendered, ready, and fully yours. Lord, this is our cry. Have your way in us. Don't just touch us, transform us. Don't just visit, inhabit. Take this word you've released and embed it deep in our bones. Let it become our walk, our witness, our worship. Let it echo in our decisions, our conversations, our relationships, our callings. Make us living proof that when you speak, things shift. We release the need for perfection, the need for approval, the need to have it all figured out. What we want is you. What we long for is your glory. And what we carry for your name, not for recognition, not for applause, but for your kingdom alone. So here we are, Father, your sons, your daughters, still trembling but standing, still unsure of the details but completely sure of your voice. Send us, use us, move through us, and may the weight of what you just spoke become the walk we live daily with joy, with passion, and with unwavering trust. We love you, we honor you, and we thank you for your voice, for your trust, and for calling us forward. In Jesus' mighty name, we pray. Amen. If this message has stirred something deep within your spirit, if you felt the voice of God reaching straight into your heart, I warmly invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who's been waiting to hear that heaven still speaks. Thank you for being part of this community. May God continue to lead you boldly into the places He's prepared just for you.